Let me tell you something that might sting a little, but it's true. A man doesn't fall apart because he's weak. He falls apart because he's been holding it all together for far too long. And here's the truth we don't talk about enough. You can come back. Not 20%, not 50%, not even 99%. You can come back 100%. But only if you do this. You must stand in your own story. Most people are running from their story like it's a burning building. But healing starts the moment you stop running and turn around to face the fire. Your story is not your shame, it's your power. The comeback happens when you stop pretending you're fine, when you stop hiding behind busy, behind sarcasm, behind silence. You want the roadmap? You want to rise again? Then tell the truth. Own your truth. Live your truth. That's the only way back. Because here's what I know about men who rise after the fall. They didn't hustle. They didn't fake it. They didn't wait for permission. They chose courage over comfort. They chose honesty over hiding. They chose the messy path over the easy mask. They chose truth, and that truth rebuilt them. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be real. And real men, they don't quit. They don't hide. They come back stronger, wiser, whole. The comeback starts the moment you stop outsourcing your story. That might sound simple, even obvious, but for so many of us, it's where the entire journey either begins or gets stuck. See, there's this deeply wired instinct in us, especially in men, to keep moving, keep pushing, keep achieving, all without ever turning inward. We're taught to define strength as silence, control as denial, and resilience as never admitting the pain. But the truth is, you cannot come back from what you refuse to admit knocked you down in the first place. You can't change a story you're too ashamed to claim as your own. And so we start to disconnect, not because we're bad or broken or weak, but because disconnection feels safer than honesty. It feels more bearable to say, I'm fine, than to say, I'm drowning. It's easier to blame the world, the job, the ex, the system, than to admit I'm lost in my own life. But let me tell you something. Real change, lasting, gut deep transformation does not happen until you own it. Not the version you wish were true, not the story that makes you look good, the actual one, the messy one, the one where you didn't show up, the one where you shut down, lashed out, gave up, or gave in. Because you can't come back from a lie. You can only come back from the truth. There's a moment in every man's life, sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's violent, where he realizes that he's become a stranger to himself. And the instinct is to fight harder, work harder, numb harder. But the comeback doesn't live in force. It lives in responsibility. It's the decision to stop saying, this just happened to me, and start saying, this is mine to carry. Not in a way that blames you, but in a way that empowers you. There's a big difference between blame and ownership. Blame says, it's all my fault. I'm a failure. Ownership says, this is my life. I get to write the next chapter. The real shift happens when you stop waiting to be rescued. Nobody's coming to save you. Not because you're unworthy of saving, but because this part is yours. And that's not a punishment. It's a privilege. Because once you own your story, you take back the pen. You stop being the victim of your narrative and you start becoming the author of it. And there is no greater power than the power to rewrite the script you once thought defined you. I've seen men come back from bankruptcy, betrayal, addiction, divorce, depression, total identity collapse, not because they discovered some magical solution, but because they finally said, "This is my life. I'm not running anymore." And in that moment, even if everything around them was still a mess, they stood taller. Not because they had it all figured out, but because they had finally owned the page they were on. That's when the comeback begins. Not when you reach the mountaintop, not when everyone forgives you, not when the world believes in you again, but when you do. Let me be clear. Ownership is not perfection. You are going to stumble, regress, fall into old patterns. That's not failure. That's being human. Owning your story doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you're committed to stop hiding from the questions. It means you're willing to show up as you are, not as who you think people need you to be. That is real bravery. That is the kind of courage that rebuilds broken bridges, reconnects fractured families, and restores a man's sense of self. This isn't about ego. This is about integrity. When you own your story, you align your inner world with your outer world. You don't have to remember who you pretended to be yesterday because you're finally showing up as you. And that kind of congruence, that kind of grounded presence, people feel it. You don't even have to talk about your comeback. People see it in your posture, in your energy, in the way you walk into a room, no longer needing to prove anything. So if you're asking yourself, where do I start? Start here. Start with the truth. Start by standing still long enough to hear the story you've been running from. You don't need to fix it all today. You just need to say, this is mine. That's where the fire starts. That's where healing becomes possible. That's where your full 100% comeback begins. Somewhere along the way, we got taught that to be vulnerable is to be weak, soft, fragile. And for men, that message is even louder. It sounds like, don't cry, don't feel, don't break. It sounds like, man up, get over it, toughen up. We hear it in locker rooms, in boardrooms, in childhoods. We hear it in moments of pain when what we really need is connection. But what we're told is don't let them see you sweat. And it's all a lie, every bit of it, because vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is strength under pressure. It's courage without armor. What takes more strength, to fake a smile when your life is falling apart, or to look someone in the eye and say, what takes more courage? To pretend you've got it all under control, or to admit, I'm scared I might lose myself if I keep pretending? We live in a culture that has confused numbness with power. But true power, the kind that heals, the kind that rebuilds, the kind that creates lasting change, only comes when you're honest about what's really happening inside. You don't get to true resilience by bypassing pain. You get there by walking through it. Vulnerability is not about oversharing or emotional dumping. It's not about spilling your guts to anyone who will listen. Vulnerability is about intentional truth telling. It's about being clear, real, and open in moments when hiding would feel easier. It's about saying, this matters to me, even when it might not be received the way you want. It's about raising your hand and saying, I need help, even when your pride is screaming at you to stay silent. It's about saying, I care, even when there's no guarantee your heart won't be broken. That's what makes vulnerability so brave. It's choosing exposure when safety is an option. The lie is that vulnerability makes you smaller. The truth is, it expands you. Vulnerability stretches your capacity for empathy, for connection, for leadership, for love. It deepens your presence in your own life. Without it, you're just going through the motions. performing a version of yourself that doesn't breathe, doesn't feel, doesn't live. Vulnerability is the difference between living fully and existing in pieces. It's not just something you do in therapy or in crisis. It's how you build meaningful relationships. It's how you lead. It's how you raise your kids. It's how you connect to your partner. It's how you return to yourself. Every man I've ever worked with who experienced deep transformation, who truly made a comeback, had a moment where he chose to stop numbing and start feeling. And that choice, that pivot toward vulnerability, that was the moment the comeback began. Because the second you stop pretending, the second you start owning your truth, something cracks open. It might not be loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's a whisper. Sometimes it's just sitting in a room with someone you trust and saying, I can't do this alone anymore. But it's real, it's sacred, and it's where the armor starts to fall away. We think the armor protects us, but more often it just isolates us. You can't connect when you're in constant performance mode. You can't heal if you're too busy looking strong. And maybe that worked for a while. Maybe the performance got you applause, respect, admiration. But did it get you peace? Did it give you joy? Did it help you sleep at night? Or did it just make the mask heavier every day? Vulnerability doesn't ask you to throw away your strength. It asks you to redefine it, not as control, not as dominance, but as emotional honesty, even in the presence of risk. You don't have to tell the whole world what you're going through, but you do have to stop hiding from yourself. Vulnerability isn't about becoming someone else. It's about finally becoming you. And here's the kicker. When you show up with that kind of realness, people don't turn away. They lean in. Because vulnerability isn't weakness. It's magnetic, it's human, it's leadership. It's not a crack in your masculinity, it's the foundation of your wholeness. And it's not something you wait to have when things are perfect, it's something you choose, especially when they're not. From the time we're boys, we're taught to play roles: provider, protector, fixer, winner. And for a while, playing those roles feels right. It feels like approval, it feels like belonging, but there comes a point where that performance starts to cost too much. You wake up one day and realize the applause doesn't fill the emptiness. The praise doesn't quiet the anxiety. The checklist doesn't equal joy. Because performing who you think you should be means you're not living as who you actually are. And that is the slowest kind of erosion, the kind that chips away at your soul, one unspoken truth at a time. Performing isn't just about pretending to be okay. It's about adjusting yourself, your voice, your feelings, your presence to fit someone else's expectations. It's the mask you wear in rooms where you don't feel safe. It's the version of yourself that hustles for validation, that fears being found out, that's terrified someone might see past the polish and into the pain. And here's the thing, it's exhausting, soul level exhausting. And what makes it so dangerous is that it looks like success. It looks like strength. But underneath, it's just disconnection from others, from your truth, from yourself. There's a difference between excellence and performance. Excellence is rooted in purpose. It flows from your values. Performance, on the other hand, is rooted in fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. So you overcompensate, you push harder, you play the role better, but that kind of living will burn you out from the inside. Because no matter how perfect the performance is, it can't meet your real needs. You can win the game and still feel like you're losing. You can get the title, the house, the respect, and still feel hollow. Because what we really want isn't applause. It's aliveness. To start living instead of performing means making a radical shift in how you show up in the world. It means choosing honesty over image. It means admitting when you're not okay. It means letting people see your process, not just your highlight reel. It means you stop editing your truth to make others comfortable. It means you let your life get messy, real, unfiltered, and in that messiness, you find freedom. Because there is nothing more liberating than showing up as your full, unmasked self and realizing you're still loved, you're still worthy, you're still enough. Living, truly living, asks you to get off the stage. It asks you to take the risk of being seen in your rawest form. It asks you to stop chasing perfection and start practice about being here now with all your scars and all your brilliance and all your doubts. It's about doing the hard work of untangling your worth from your achievements. You are not your performance. You are not your resume. You are not your income, your status, your body, or your Instagram feed. You are a human being, and being means feeling. Being means stumbling. Being means growing through things you'd rather skip past. This isn't about letting go of your ambition. It's about realigning it. What if your greatest success wasn't how well you performed, but how fully you lived? What if your legacy wasn't built on image, but on impact? On how well you loved, how deeply you connected, how bravely you told the truth? That's what starts to happen when you stop performing. You reconnect with your values. You remember who you are beneath the roles, and you finally start building a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. When you let go of the performance, you make room for something so much more powerful, authenticity. And authenticity doesn't mean perfection. It means wholeness. It means alignment. It means showing up not as the man you think people want, but as the man you truly are. And when you do that, when you choose living over performing, you don't just set yourself free, you give everyone around you permission to do the same. That's leadership, that's legacy, that's what changes everything. There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream, it doesn't bleed, it doesn't break bones, it just lingers, quiet, heavy, unseen. That kind of pain lives in silence, and for so many men, silence has become the default setting, not because they don't feel, but because they've been told their feelings don't matter. From a young age, the message is clear. Don't cry, don't talk about it, don't show weakness, be a man, toughen up, move on. So instead of reaching out, you shut down. Instead of expressing, you suppress. And that silence over time becomes its own kind of prison. It starts small, shrinking your voice in relationships, brushing off hurt with jokes, numbing discomfort with work or screens or alcohol. You convince yourself it's no big deal. You're fine. You're handling it. But underneath the surface, that silence starts to fester. And what you don't talk about, you start to carry, not for a moment, not for a season, but for years. The weight adds up. The grief, the anger, the confusion, they don't disappear. They just get buried deeper, and eventually they show up somewhere else, in your body, in your relationships, in your habits. Silence always finds a way to speak, even if it has to whisper through destruction. There's this myth that silence is strength, that stoicism means power, but let's call that what it really is, fear. Fear of being judged, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being seen, But here's the thing, what you silence will always find a voice. If you don't speak your truth, it starts to leak out in ways you can't control. You get irritable, you shut people out, you overreact to little things, or you disconnect entirely. Because when your internal world is full of unspoken stories, your external world becomes hard to navigate. Communication breaks down, intimacy disappears. You can't connect when you're constantly guarding the truth. I've worked with countless men who came into the room convinced they had nothing to say. I'm not good with emotions. Talking won't fix anything. It's just easier to keep it in. But give them 5 minutes of safety, 5 minutes of not being judged, and they open up like floodgates. Because it's never that they don't feel, it's that they've never been given permission or a safe space to be real. And when the words finally come out, you can see it, the release, the relief, the deep breath that only happens when the truth is spoken aloud. That's not weakness, that's freedom. Speaking isn't always about finding the right words. Sometimes it's just about letting yourself be seen. It's letting out the truth you've been choking back for so long. It's sitting in a room and saying, I'm tired, or I'm hurting, or I don't know who I am anymore. And in those moments, something powerful happens. You realize you're not alone. Because silence isolates, but truth connects. When you speak, you open the door to healing. You open the door to support. You give yourself permission to be human, and you invite others to do the same. We've got to stop pretending that silence is noble. Silence is survival, but it's not living. It's enduring. And men were made for more than just getting through the day. You were made to thrive. You were made to feel fully, love deeply, lead courageously. And that starts with voice. It starts with telling the truth about your experience, even if your voice shakes, even if you don't know where it'll lead, because the alternative, it's numbness, it's distance, it's a quiet, invisible death that robs you of your aliveness day by day, year by year. You don't have to tell the whole world, but you do have to stop lying to yourself. Stop saying you're okay when you're not. Stop saying it's not that deep when it's been eating you alive. There is no healing without honesty, and there is no honesty without voice. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to start. Speak the pain, speak the truth, speak the story that's been locked inside for too long. Because your silence is not protecting you. It's slowly undoing you. And your comeback, it starts the moment you break that silence and let yourself be heard. Most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid discomfort. We resist it. We numb it. We push it away. We pretend we're above it. We convince ourselves that if we just work hard enough, plan smart enough, achieve fast enough, we'll finally arrive in a place where discomfort doesn't touch us anymore. But here's the truth no one wants to hear. Discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. There's no version of a strong comeback that skips over the pain. There's no transformation that happens inside a comfort zone. Every return to purpose, every reclamation of self, every deep healing starts with a moment of honest, gut-level discomfort. Discomfort is not punishment. It's not weakness. It's not failure. It's data. It's your soul telling you something isn't aligned. It's your body signaling that something's unresolved. It's your spirit asking for something deeper than survival. But we don't like sitting in it because it threatens the illusion of control. It asks us to slow down, to feel, to get curious instead of reactive. And most of us were never taught how to do that, especially men. You were taught to fight, fix, or flee, but rarely to feel. So when discomfort shows up, the impulse is to armor up, shut down, and move on. But that's not growth. That's avoidance disguised as strength. If you want the comeback, if you really want it, it's going to cost you the comfort of avoidance. It's going to ask you to lean into the spaces you've been running from, that anxiety you've ignored, that grief you've buried, that shame you've silenced for years. Yeah, it's all coming with you, not to punish you, but to free you. Because what we don't heal, we repeat. What we refuse to feel, we act out. What we suppress, we project. There's no shortcut. The comeback goes through the discomfort, not around it. And that's what makes it so powerful. You don't just return stronger, you return wiser, deeper, truer. There's something sacred about sitting with discomfort and not trying to escape it. When you stop fighting it, something surprising happens. Clarity. You start to hear yourself again. Not the performance version of you, not the people pleaser, not the achiever, but the real you, the one that's been buried under the noise. Discomfort clears space. It asks questions like, what do I really want? What am I actually afraid of? What story am I still believing that no longer serves me? It invites you to stop numbing and start listening. And that's the first step in writing a new story, a true one. I've watched so many men reach their breaking point and think they've failed. But what they don't realize is they're standing at the doorway. That discomfort they feel, that breakdown, that unraveling, it's not the end, it's the beginning. It's the initiation into something real, into something earned. Because when you can sit in discomfort without needing to fix it, when you can feel pain without making it mean you're broken, when you can grieve what was and still choose to move forward, that's when you know you're coming back whole. That's when you stop surviving and start transforming. And let me be clear, this doesn't mean you suffer in silence. It doesn't mean you sit in pain alone. Discomfort doesn't require isolation. It requires honesty. You walk through it with people who are safe, people who don't try to rescue you or fix you or preach at you, but who sit beside you and say, me too, I've been there. You get support, you find tools, you stay present. You let the discomfort become a teacher instead of a threat. And in doing so, you begin to build a level of strength that can't be faked, a depth of character that can't be bought, a sense of self that can't be shaken. We can't grow while clinging to comfort. It's never worked that way. The comeback demands a choice to lean in instead of back out, to feel what's hard to feel, to face what's easy to deny. But in that choice is where everything shifts, because discomfort doesn't destroy us. Avoiding it does. Facing it, naming it, breathing through it, learning from it. That's what rebuilds us. That's where we meet the truest version of ourselves. And once you've met that man, the one who can sit in fire and stay grounded, you don't go back. You rise different. You rise full. You rise ready. You cannot do this alone. And not because you're not strong enough, not because you're broken or weak or incapable, but because we were never wired for isolation. We are biologically, emotionally, spiritually designed for connection. And yet somewhere along the line, especially for men, independence became the gold standard. The lone wolf myth got glorified. Don't need anybody, don't rely on anyone, keep your circle tight, or better yet, keep it non-existent, just handle it yourself. But what no one tells you is that isolation might protect your pride, but it starves your soul. The people you allow into your life shape everything. Your thoughts, your decisions, your energy, your growth. So let's be real. Who you surround yourself with matters more than you think. Take a look at the people closest to you. Are they mirrors that reflect your worth, or are they amplifiers of your insecurity? Do they cheer when you heal or shrink when you shine? We all become like the energy we marinate in. Sit too long in circles built on sarcasm, cynicism, judgment, or surface level connection, and eventually you'll start to believe that's all there is. But when you place yourself in rooms where truth is honored, vulnerability is welcomed, and growth is celebrated, you rise, you elevate, you heal faster, you dream bigger, because the environment we choose either pulls us forward or drags us down. And too many men are stuck in rooms that feel familiar, but keep them small. It's not just about avoiding toxic people. It's about actively choosing transformational people. People who tell you the truth, even when it's hard. People who remind you who you are when you forget. People who don't let you settle for numbness. You need people who don't flinch when you cry, who don't retreat when you say, I'm lost, and who don't walk away when you're at your lowest. You need people who don't feed your shame or your ego, but who nourish your heart. And finding those people doesn't just happen. You have to be intentional. You have to open up. You have to be brave enough to say, I want real connection, even if you don't know where to start. Here's something that's hard to admit. Some of the people you've walked with until now may not be meant to go with you where you're going next. That doesn't mean they're bad. That doesn't mean you're better. It just means you're changing, and not everyone is built to hold space for your growth. And that's okay. You can still love people and outgrow the dynamic. You can still care and create distance. A comeback isn't just about rebuilding what you lost. It's about redefining who you are. And that often means redefining who gets access to your most sacred spaces. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors with locks, and you get to choose who has the key. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is from proximity to authenticity. Stop measuring friendship by how long you've known someone and start measuring it by how safe you feel when you're with them. When you find people who don't need you to perform, people who are more interested in your heart than your hustle, hold on to them. That kind of connection isn't loud or flashy. It's steady. It's grounding. It says you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to show up. These are the people who will walk with you through the dark and not try to fix it, just be there. And sometimes that presence is the difference between falling apart and coming back stronger. Healing happens faster in safe connection. Growth multiplies when it's mirrored by people who believe in you. You can read the books, you can do the work, you can push through, but without a support system, without people who see you, it's like trying to climb a mountain barefoot. You need encouragement. You need truth tellers. You need someone to say, me too, when you share the parts of yourself you thought were too messy to be loved. You need community, not because you're not enough on your own, but because life is too heavy to carry alone, especially when you're rebuilding, when the people around you expect your healing, encourage your vulnerability, and celebrate your authenticity. You don't just change, you transform. The comeback doesn't just happen inside of you, it happens in the context of who's walking beside you. So choose wisely, let go bravely. Invite in the ones who make you feel more like yourself. Because the truth is, the right circle won't just witness your rise, they'll help you build the stairs. And in those relationships, you'll remember that you never had to earn love or connection by being perfect. You just had to be real. You just had to show up. And that is the beginning of everything. So here's the truth, and I want you to hear it, not just with your ears, but with your gut. Your comeback is not some distant fantasy. It's not reserved for the few, the lucky, the already healed. It's yours if you're willing to claim it, but it doesn't come by chasing perfection. It doesn't come from numbing out, powering through, or pretending you're fine. It comes when you slow down and decide, really decide, that you're done living half alive. That you're done letting silence, shame, and fear run the show. That you're ready to come back not as who you were, but as who you really are. Your comeback starts the moment you choose honesty over hiding, presence over performance, discomfort over denial. It starts when you decide to show up fully, even if you're still in pieces. It starts when you let people in, when you choose your circle with intention, when you speak the truth, even if your voice shakes, when you stop waiting for permission and start trusting your own resilience. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to take the next right step. And that step, it's going to ask something of you. It's going to require courage. Not the loud, polished, Instagram-worthy kind. I'm talking about the messy, shaky, 3 a.m. kind of courage. The kind that whispers, I'm still here. The kind that doesn't wait to feel ready. The kind that rises anyway. That's the courage that transforms. That's the courage that rebuilds a man from the inside out. Because in the end, this isn't just about bouncing back. It's about coming back truer, stronger, wider open. It's about shedding the old story, the one that told you to keep quiet, stay small, tough it out, and writing a new one where your vulnerability becomes your power, one where your wounds become your wisdom, one where your comeback isn't just a return, it's a rebirth. This isn't easy work, but it's the real work. And you don't have to do it alone. You were never meant to. Let's rise.